Wow. What people don't realize is that Aladdin was really a triple threat. Virgin, us at Virgin, we were making the game. Disney, we had all the Disney animators and the Disney license, so they were, very well vested in the game. But then Sega, they loved it so much that they wanted to help distribute the game with us as well. So it was really like three huge powerhouses all working on one game.
We sort of built this cool team who really cared about animation, and we made a game called Cool Spot for 7-Up.
I was part of Dave Perry's team, and we were doing the Genesis SKUs of games at the time. So we had done Global Gladiators, and then we did Cool Spot, and then we started working on Jungle Book, which that was one of my favorite Disney movies of all time, so I was really excited to be doing that.
So if you're from Disney and you saw how lovingly we were making Jungle Book, I think that was a surprise to them. They probably looked at that and went, okay, these are the guys.
I was doing a bunch of Mowgli animation and monkeys, and we were just sort of getting into it. And then the Aladdin thing came in out of the blue, and so our team, Dave Perry and myself and our group, got pulled over to Aladdin.
They already had started Aladdin with another developer, but decided to give it to us.
Basically, my understanding was Disney came to Martin Alper, the president of Virgin, and says, hey, we've got this product, and the current developer is sort of failing. They brought us in, I think it was almost like 20 people maybe, you include all the designers, and basically said, go. We just, okay, what do we need to do?
You see how the world works. It's kind of strange. You can't quite just jump to say, well, we'll just do Aladdin. You have to sort of weave your way to it. You've got proof you can do cell animation in a video game. You've got artists that clearly can do very high quality Disney animation. And then music, our music was going to win awards again. We're on a roll at that point. Aladdin was just this flow of each game we did sort of gained more and more energy and attention on our team. We didn't have much time to do Aladdin. We did it in about 99 days. It was one of the fastest game developments ever.
We had to have it done and finished by the time Aladdin came out on video that Christmas, because they were going to put in a flyer, remember? They were going to put in a flyer in like 10 million Aladdin VHS tapes saying, and buy the video game. So we had this massive deadline.
We just pounded out a design document in a couple days. Everybody was really excited because we were getting to do a Disney Aladdin game.
It was great because everyone was united by desire to work with Disney, work with this company that's pushing new boundaries.
I mean, our goal really was to do justice to the movie, which was a huge hit at the time.
We were going to take hand-drawn animation, scan them in, and then color them in, tidy them up, so you could actually be playing an interactive cartoon.
They were doing hand-drawn pencil and paper animation that they had experimented with digitizing and getting into the computer and then playing on a Genesis. It was exactly the kind of thing Disney was looking for at the time.
They had this great engine and had yet to put a really big license to it. And so it was like the big license meeting the perfect engine at the right time for this little brief window.
Just the pipeline for the animation was a pretty major hurdle. I was shuttling back and forth between Irvine and Florida, where Disney was at the time. I was still pretty green, and they sent me down to Florida to try and teach these featured superstar animators how to do video game animation. And I was like, they should be teaching me how to do animation. We burned a lot of time in the beginning figuring out how to make it look the way it was supposed to look.
I think as an artist, you always look at your work with a critical eye and you're never totally happy with it.
There were a lot of people, especially at Virgin, that were losing confidence in our ability to pull it off. And so it wasn't until the stuff started coming in and looking good and then started coming in fast enough that it was clear it was going to get done that everybody kind of relaxed a little bit.
We'd all design games and been around games, so we just started adding our own ideas, and Dave would just incorporate them.
In the lamp level that you did, was that in the movie?
No, that wasn't. That was one that was totally not in the movie.
I mean, the parts. You recognize the parts in it, maybe from some of the more abstract moments in the movie.
Yeah, we got the graphics were from the movie, but the actual, Aladdin's actually inside the lamp kind of thing, and he's jumping around on the genie's body, which. Really, I don't think there was anything like that. Disney just accepted it that's necessary to make changes to make some gameplay.
But it looked like it belonged totally.
Did, yes.
Because you use lots of actual genie parts, right? You have the flicking finger, you bounced off.
And there was the big letters. I think at one point there was big letters, like Roman numerals on columns of that. I think that was also.
So the imagery looked very familiar.
It was all from the game, all from the movie,
I always feel, I just wish we could have more time.
I like to fix the camera. Yeah, the camera's so jerky. We didn't realize it at the time because Dave hadn't smoothed out to the camera's engine yet. So now when I look back at Aladdin and you jump, the camera's going like this.
We did more professional testing than we'd probably ever done. It meant that we were running these focus tests where we were watching through glass and watching
That's
kids
right,
play. And we would argue it's too easy or it's too hard. And then you would see the kids having a really, really hard time. And that settled all the arguments. Who cares what your opinion is? We're watching a bunch of kids suffer right now. I don't care if you think it's easy or not. These kids are suffering. Please fix it. I had a special screen that I used for testing the game that we would use on the team. You type in a code and my face would appear.
Yeah.
And it was just what I used to sort of really, really hack the game and play and test and jump wherever I wanted. It turned out this actually really helped for my career because, you know, people start to recognize you from the game.
The code gets out.
Because people find our cheat codes, they find how we've been making the game.
Well, actually, I would leak them to the press, actually.
Because the game was moving so fast, everyone was excited every day by what they were seeing. It was feeling good, it was looking awesome, the animation was coming in.
I don't think we realized it at the time, but the fact that that group of people got along as well as they did under the amount of pressure that they were under and performed their jobs without killing each other is pretty amazing. It was actually a really, really good group of people. And I can tell you, the group of people that I worked with down in Florida, that's like one of the best groups of people I ever worked with.
For us, I think it was like a brotherhood. We were all passionate, we were all young people, none of us were really married or had kids, so it was our whole life, and we were so passionate about making the best stuff possible. And when you have 7, 8 people all like that in a room together, it's pretty amazing, pretty magical.
I think what's important on a team is that you respect the talent of the other people.
Totally.
Because what occurs when that happens, when an artist draws something and you're like, oh my God, it looks really good, it actually creates this, it's not just respect, but I don't know, somehow it makes you feel really good about the people you're with. And if anything, I would define it as you feel lucky to be there. You feel lucky that you're surrounded with this group of people, and then they look around and they feel the same thing. And I think ultimately you end up with this very tight team. Because of that, you know, everyone was just delivering. That really made this whole thing work well.
Just remember all the people. I think it's the people that really hit me, and just the craziness of, I still work in the video game industry now, and it's very sane, but back then it was just the Wild West.
Everything was like, yeah, unusual, especially when they brought so many Brits over. They put us all in the same apartment complex.
Oh, that's right.
So it was like an oasis, right? And you just get pizza and everyone would come over and eat. We'd all hang out at each other's places.
In terms of how well we got along, or how, you know, the quality of that team, we went on to do other projects together and stuck together. We definitely had a good...
Well, you and I, we've been working together ever since, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
For Virgin as a company, they became a much bigger company, and they had a lot more opportunities, a lot bigger opportunities after Aladdin, because they showed what they could do. You know, they got the Lion King game, and they got some other games, and they were able to bring in more people and more talented people and do bigger projects. And I think Aladdin opened the door for them.
After Aladdin, you could feel the company growing.
This was the very first time ever where somebody could legitimately play an interactive cartoon. It was hand-drawn art. It was an interactive cartoon.
Our goal really was to do justice to the movie, which was a huge hit at the time.
We could use everything that's good about the movie.
Yes.
There was no restrictions. Allow us to work in directly with the movie studio rather than through a game publisher.
The biggest challenge was just being true to the art style and keeping everything on model and making sure that it looked, that it was up to the standards that we all knew to be Disney standards.
Wow!
They hired Disney Feature Animation to do the hand-drawn animation.
Our team was incredibly excited about that, because to have a team full of animators that work with pencils, to have them work on a Disney project at this level was incredible. But what we didn't understand was they would actually give us access to the people who made Aladdin, the directors, the animators in Florida, for example. That changed everything. Our lead animator, Mike Dietz, ended up going to Florida and working with the Disney animators.
As an animator, getting to deal with Disney feature animation, getting to fly down there, work in the Disney animation studios with like some of the greatest animators on the planet and learn from them and just be around them. Like they set me up with like a desk in the Disney animation studio and I'm sitting there drawing and I'm going, what is going on here? It was like a dream come true.
Their stuff was great and it was really inspirational, and we learned a lot about color and how they used it.
Because a lot of times some of the images can be quite simple, but they work, they're balanced, they're doing things you're not really seeing, you know, but they're communicating to you, and they're just very, very talented. You can tell you're dealing with very, very talented artists, so it's nervous.
It was pretty unfair for the rest of the industry, right? It's like, you know, if you're an animator and we've got Disney feature animation on our team.
Well, so the way we worked was, because animation is so expensive and it's a multi-step process, the first thing you do in animation is you do a pencil test, which is just a rough drawing. And then normally if you're making a film, you would watch the pencil test of the film and go, oh, we want to make these changes to the animation and make these revisions and add this here and take this out here. And then when you're happy with it, then you do a cleaned up version of the drawing. And then you look at that, and then you ink it, and then you paint it and color it and finish it. That's a very expensive process, and you wouldn't want to go through that process on something that you're not sure is going to be in the game. So what we had developed a little bit on Jungle Book, but it really started on Aladdin, was to take those pencil test drawings that we were getting from Disney that were not finished, and we would digitize those and flood fill them white, and then put them in as sprites in the game. And then we could test it. We could play test it, see what was working, see if the mechanic was working at all, but also see if the animation itself was working. And then, when it was, only then we would move on to the final.
What we would do, we would take these, you know, images from Disney, and then I think I would just paint it without thinking too much about the tiles and breaking it down. So I'd paint the bigger shapes, and then after that I would try and figure out, now how do I make this into a tile set, and how do I make it efficient so we can actually fit it in the memory of the game.
And then once you got it to that, then you'd have to go in and clean it up, and then sometimes it was still kind of crunchy, and then there was a whole process of going in and touching up the stuff that wasn't looking real great. That was just a frame-by-frame manual process. That was really difficult because you had to have someone who had a sensitivity towards both animation and pixel art so that they could touch up what was there without like drawing over it and losing the sub-pixel movement. For me personally, the biggest challenge was educating the feature film animators who were used to animate at 24 frames per second and having as many frames as they needed to and like no restrictions. Teaching them what the restrictions were of animating for a video game and some of the techniques that we used to use to get around those limitations, and then try and like get their superpowers as amazing animators to execute these techniques that we had developed to get the best out of the limited resources we have and make the animation feel like it was Disney feature quality animation, even though it was far less frames and, you know, just crunchy resolutions. It was a process, and it was a process just figuring out what that pipeline was, and then once we knew what the pipeline was, like to actually just run all that animation through that was time-consuming and expensive.
What's so impressive is the fact that with the limited palette that was on the Genesis, we were still able, I felt, to sort of faithfully reproduce what the animated movie had, the colors and the look and the feel of the artwork. And then that came down to the fact that we did have really good source reference material from Disney. We had big printed out frames of the movie right the way through the movie, so we had a lot of reference, which was something quite unique. Up to that point, we didn't have a lot of reference for games.
When you looked at games back then, everything looked kind of angular. You know, platforms and girders and crates. And so people would have a tendency to draw in squares or along that line.
Yes.
And with Aladdin, seeing those backgrounds, I think we were the first to really break that. We created more large shapes of buildings. You couldn't see the tiles, it wasn't so obvious. We were really trying to capture the spirit. That was tricky, that was challenging. And sometimes it's funny, you go back and you see stuff, and I know my kids will be looking at Aladdin and they go, "Did you do that, Dad? Did you do that?" And you can't remember.
I can't remember. No.
Like, that's how closely everyone managed to get their styles. So I'd look at something and go, "Oh, yeah, I think I did that, but Steve could have done that, or Lynn could have done that."
Yeah,
I'm
that's
actually not
right.
sure.
I think, yeah.
I've got a memory that I could have done it.
Yeah, I remember certain things I did, but I don't remember everything.
Back then, it was like, what? How are they doing this? The animation was the smoothest the industry had ever seen.
You knew, hey, this is a very special game we're working on.
And the amazing thing is, if you put in Aladdin today and you play it, it holds up. Now, how many video games 25 years later can you say graphically can hold up and you can still find it interesting graphically? And that's why I knew it was going to be a big hit, because it looked like nothing. I couldn't wait for people to see this. Sometimes you just know.
intro spikes too. Also, there's a little movement over the head that's very subtle.
real distinction between Disney characters is that they are created as devices for storytelling. I mean, and by doing that, they have distinct personalities. And within a story, they have a whole range of personalities, so they complement each other as well as contrast each other. And so there's a great deal of thought and work in the development of the personality of each character in there. And then what our job was in this particular game was to make sure that those personalities were built on but maintained